So we're going to look at speed, we're going to look at distance, we're going to look at time, and how they all work together. Speed, distance and time. And this is how we calculate it. We calculate it by using this triangle, the speed, distance and time triangle. Distance at the top, always at the top. Speed and time are at the bottom half of the triangle, in the bottom section of the triangle. This line here is a divide line, and in between this line that separates the S and the T, you've got a multiplication. Okay, and that tells you what you've got to do. So how do we work this particular thing out? So if we go to this picture here, where you can see my giant hand here, if we need to find the speed of something, how fast something is going, we cover that speed up, and it tells us what the formula is, and the formula is the distance divided by the time. Okay, doesn't matter which way around these two go, to be perfectly honest. That's how this works, this triangle. Yeah? So if you wanted to find the time of something, how long would it take somebody to drive a certain distance, you cover the time up, and it's the distance divided by the speed. That's how you remember these formulas. So you don't have to remember the formula, you just have to remember this. Okay, this triangle. Now how you remember that is entirely up to yourself. Okay? Some people remember it by the fact that the D comes before S and T in the alphabet, so it goes a little bit higher up. Some people think that that triangle there looks like a dunce's hat, so the D at the beginning, at the top of the dunce's hat. Other people think to themselves, oh yeah, D, S, T. David travels slowly. You might make yourself a little saying, yeah? It's up to you how you remember it. D, S and T, it's up to you. Okay, so that's how we calculate speed, distance and time. So here's a couple of questions. Let's look first here at this fellow here, Tony. He can run 18 kilometres in 1 hour and 30 minutes, but how fast is he running? How fast? Speed. Yeah, speed. So cover speed up on your triangle, and what does it give us? What does it give us? It gives us distance divided by time. Yeah, is that right?
Yep.
So the distance he's running is 18 kilometres. We're going to divide that by the time. What's the time?
We're changing it into minutes.
Right, good point, good point. We can either do it as hours, which then it would be 1 hour
1.5.
1.5, so let's do that. Or let's get the decent black pen that works, or quite rightly,
Then would you have to change your kilometres? No.
we'll come to that in a second, it's a good point again. Or,
Because I don't want to divide that by 9.
like you've just said, do it minutes. Yeah, so that's done by hours, that's done by minutes. So 18 divided by 1.5 gives us 12. So that would be 12. Now what you've got to remember, what you've got to look back in now to the answer, look at the unit of distance, which is kilometres. Make sure you put that in the answer. 12 kilometres, put a slash, and he's done it by hour. So it's 12 kilometres per hour. Yeah? If you do it the second way, and you do it by minutes, so you can change them to minutes, it's no problem. 18 divided by 90 gives you 0.2. The unit of distance changed the same because we're still in kilometres, so that stays as kilometres. But now instead of it being in the hour, it's in the minute, because we used minutes, didn't we? So he's running 12 kilometres an hour or 0.2 kilometres per minute.
It doesn't matter which answer you put.
Doesn't matter which answer you put down unless it specifies in the question.
Unless it asks you.
In the question which answer you put down. So bearing that in mind, Penelope Pitstop, she can drive 344 miles in 4.5 hours is she breaking the speed limit? 344 miles in 4.5. Is she breaking that speed limit? The speed limit's 70. Give us a shake or a nod.
Yes.
Yeah? 76.4. 344 divided by 4.5, 4.5 hours, 4.5. So yes, she's breaking the speed limit. Doesn't matter. So the only thing you've got to remember about this is, if you're working a speed question out, you must always put in the answer the units of distance that they're using, in this case kilometres, or they're using a measurement, sorry, kilometres, in this case miles, and depending on what you've divided it by, hours or minutes, hours, you must put that in the answer, yeah? So 76.4 miles per hour, 12 kilometres per hour. You only need to do it for speed. You don't need to do it for distance, because distance will just be kilometres. You don't need to do it for time, because time will just be hours. So it's only when you're working speed out, alright? Only when you're working speed. So what I just want to show you now, I just want to introduce you to this, and I've got one of these printed out for you. What we're going to come across now is time as a decimal. So decimal hours, okay? Or minutes. Let's think of a clock. Now, let's think of a clock face. Try and get you to understand this as a clock face. So here's a clock face. At the top of the clock, we've got a 0.0. Here, that's 15 minutes. We also call it a quarter past. Yeah? A quarter is 0.25. So 15 minutes is actually equal to 0.25. Down here, that's 30 minutes. We call that half an hour, which is also 0.5. Does that make sense?
Because it's half.
Because it's a half.
Yeah.
Here, this is 45 minutes. Not 75 minutes, 45 minutes. Which is 3/4 is 3/4 of an hour. Which is 0.75. So these here, they're the decimal hours. Yeah? These are your minutes, but these are the decimal hours. 0.75 of an hour. 0.50 of an hour. So, and obviously then at the top you've got your 1.00, yeah? Which is the full hour. Okay, so that's how this works. That's how this works. And we need to know that, because if we've got a question, which we will have in a second, where somebody's driving down the motorway at 56 miles an hour, but they want the answer in minutes, you've got to be able to convert between the hours and the minutes by multiplying or dividing by 60. Okay, because there's 60 minutes in an hour. I've got an handout for you for this one. What you don't need to do, you don't need to memorise this. Okay? All you need to remember is times or divide by 60. That's all you've got to remember. So let's look at an example of this, how it works. Let's look at an example. Here we've got on the screen. When working with speed, distance and time questions, it is important to recognise the units in the question. So we've got a question here. This is Stevie. Stevie runs at an average pace of 14 kilometres per hour for 45 minutes. Calculate how far she runs. The first thing we recognise here, kilometres per hour, minutes. Two different units of measurement, time. Yeah? We can't work with them when they're different. So calculate how far she runs. So, we've got hours, we've got minutes. So the first thing we need to do, we write down the formula, which is distance equals speed times time. Take the 45 minutes, divide it by 60, which will make it into the decimal hours, which is 0.75. 45 minutes, 0.75. So that's there. Does that make sense? Yeah? Then, into that equation, you can now put that formula. The speed is 14 times 0.75, which we've just done that calculation there. 14 times 0.75 equals 10.5 kilometres. That makes sense because hours and minutes. We've had to convert them hours
To minutes.
to minutes. Yeah?
Whereas if that was a full hour, you wouldn't have had to.
If that was a full hour, you wouldn't have had to do it. Yeah? So we've had to change it to 0.75 because 0.75 is 45 minutes. Yeah? It's 45 minutes. So you don't need to memorise this table. You don't need to memorise that at all. You just need to remember to either divide by 60 or multiply by 60 whenever you've got hours and minutes in the same question. We'll have a look at a couple more just to kind of get ourselves into the swing of it when we've looked at some distance and time questions. You will start to recognise it. So distance and time, we just looked at a distance question there. What you will normally find, and the reason for this particular slide is that everything you need to answer this question is there on the screen. Everything you need. You don't have to make a number up because everything you need is there. This train is moving at 10 m/s. That's the speed. You've been given it. There's the speed. What does the M stand for? Well, the M stands for metres. We know that little M stands for metres. We've learned that. But what does the S stand for? Well, it stands for seconds because there it is in the question. So this train is moving at 10 metres per second. That's the speed of that train. How much time does it take for the train to travel 150 metres? That's a time question. Time is equal to the distance divided by the speed. There's the distance of 150 metres. There's the speed. 150 divided by 10 is 15. 15 what? 15 seconds. Why seconds? Because the seconds are in the question. It makes sense. Yeah? Everything you needed to work that out was in that question. How far would the train travel in 60 seconds? Well, that's a distance question, isn't it? Because the word how far. So what's distance? It's the speed multiplied by the time. There's the speed, 10 metres per second. There's the time, 60 seconds. 10 times 60, 600. The answer is metres, because metres there in the question. So everything you needed to answer that question was on that. We've not had to make any numbers up at all there. The only numbers we needed to find were those two answers, because everything else, all the information was given to you in the question. And that's what you'll find with these. All the information's there. All you've got to do is decide what you're going to do with the numbers. That's all you've got to remember how to do. Okay? Let's look at a couple of examples. A car travels 30 kilometres in 48 minutes. Calculate the average speed of the journey in kilometres per hour.
So it's
Minutes to hours, yeah. 48 minutes. What's that as in your decimal hourage? Is that a proper word? I'm not sure it is. What is 48 minutes? What are you going to do with that 48? Are you going to times it by 60? Or are you going to divide it by 60? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with that 48? If you're not sure, do both sums. Times it by 60, does that number look right? Or divide it by 60, does that number look right? And remember, 48 minutes on our thing. It's going to be somewhere here, isn't it? So it's going to be 0.6 70 some and maybe 80 something, I don't know, what's it going to be? Yeah? So that's the first thing you're going to do. You're going to change this to hours by dividing 48 by 60. That's the first thing you're going to do. Yeah? That's the first thing you do. Convert the minutes into hours by dividing by 60. 48 divided by 60 equals 0.8. Yeah? 0.8. Now, you've got your time, you've got your distance. Pop it into the equation by covering up the speed. And what have you got? You've got speed is equal to the distance divided by the time, so that's 30, divided by the 0.8 now, because you've changed it, remember? 30 divided by 0.8, so the average speed is 37.5 miles. Sorry, kilometres per hour.
I got 37.5.
37.5?
I need something like that.
Yeah. Travels at an average speed of 14 miles an hour for 25 minutes. Calculate how far the cyclist has travelled, giving your answer to 2 decimal places. Right, well, what's the formula? What is it asking us? It's asking us what distance, because it says how far. So it's the distance. So we cover distance up on our triangle, and we've got speed times time. Yeah, that's our triangle. But hang on a minute. When we come back to the screen, miles per hour,
Oh, right.
25 minutes.
We need to convert the 25 minutes to decimal hours.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So,
We need to convert the 25 minutes to decimals, which is going to be somewhere down here, isn't it? Yeah? So when we put it up on the screen now, we've got a little bit of a bid mass situation going on. We've got the distance, 14, sorry, the speed, 14, multiplied by the time, which is the 25 divided by 60, which I've not put on as the whatever it is there. What is 25 divided by 60? It's got to be 0 point something.
40.
Yeah? Please note, we have to need to convert the minutes into hours, which is what we've done. So it's 5.83 miles. So that would be 14 times by 25 minutes, which is 0.42. Yeah? 14 times 0.42, which is 5.83 miles. You have to decide. Do you divide or do you multiply by the 60? And if you're not sure, do both. And one of the answers will become quite clear, and one of the answers will become, yeah, it can't be that because the number's way too big. What about this one then? The plane is going from Manchester to Madrid, which is a 1,292 mile journey. The plane travels at an average speed of 516.8 miles per hour. Calculate the time taken for this flight, giving your answer in hours and minutes.
so it's a time question.
Luckily, we've got hours and hours there, so we don't need to do any converting.
Right.
Yeah, it's a time question. Yeah. How long? Calculate the time. How long is it going to take? Is it going to take longer than 3 hours? Or less than 3 hours? What do you think? Less than 3 hours? So time is distance divided by speed. 1292 divided by 516.8 equals 2.5. 2.5 hours is
2.5.
2 hours 30 minutes. Yeah. Given your answer in hours and minutes.
I would fail, I didn't really know.
Yeah. Hours and minutes. Not a difficult question. Quite straightforward. Quite easy. There, 3 to have another go at. Alright. Jessica drives 36 miles in 50 minutes. Calculate her average speed in miles per hour. So this is where you've got to decide. Divide or times by 60. I'm just going to do a little triangle in here. I'll do it in the clock. Okay, there's a little triangle. Just to remind us, we're looking for speed. Distance divided by time. Distance is 36 miles. Time's in minutes. But the question's asking miles per hour. Yeah, miles per hour. So have we all got an answer? Have we got something down? Yeah? Kind of.
Yeah.
50 divided by 60 to start with, because we're making this into a digital hour, which is 0.83. So then we've got 36 divided by 0.83, 43.3 miles per hour. Yeah, 43.3. Similar kind of question. Amelia cycles 21 kilometres at an average speed of 30 kilometres per hour. Calculate how long the bike ride is in minutes. Just got a little bit of a conversion going on there again. This is distance. Oh, no, sorry, it's time. How long the bike ride would be, time. Distance divided by speed. Doing your calculation at the end. Your conversion at the end. Let's get the answer up. We're ready for the answer, yeah? So the time is equal to the distance, 21 kilometres, divided by the speed, 30 kilometres, which gives you 0.7 hours. 0.7 hours. So times that by 60 gives you your 42 minutes. Yeah? And we know we've got to times it by 60, because if we divide that by 60, we end up with a really, really tiny number, 0.000, yeah? So that's not a time. 42 minutes, that's quite sensible. That's quite sensible, yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, the last one. The distance between Madrid and Cadiz in Spain is 647 kilometres. The speed limit on the motorway is 110 kilometres per hour. Is it possible to drive from Madrid to Cadiz in 6 hours? No conversions needed.
Is it a time question? Is it?
Yeah, because what have we got? We've got the distance,
Yeah.
we've got the speed limit.
So it's the time that's left.
Yeah.
Right.
And the question's asking us, is it possible to drive in 6 hours? So it is a time question, yeah. And luckily, you don't have to do any converting. So, we said it's a time question. Distance divided by speed, 647 divided by 110. 5.88 hours. So yes, we don't need to convert that 0.88 hours because we know we're less than 6 hours anyway in the answer, because it's 5.88 hours. So we know we're less than 6 hours anyway. So the answer is yes, we can drive to Cadiz in 6 hours. So yeah, hours, minutes, You've got to remember to do this divided by 60 or this times in by 60. Yeah, at some point in the question. At some point in the question. Okay. So let's have a little bit of fun now. Let's just see if we can put all this together and do some calculations. Now, luckily for these next three sums that you're going to need to do, you don't need to be bothering with the times or dividing by 60. Made it quite easy for you for this little section. So here we've got three very well-known cars. We've got Herbie the Love Bug, goes 35 kilometres an hour for 3 hours. We've got this Ford Mustang from the movie Bullet. It goes 100 kilometres at 40 kilometres per hour. And then we've got James Bond's DB5, which goes 90 kilometres in 2 hours. Okay? But which car travels the furthest, which car goes the fastest, and which car travels for the longest time? So what you need to do there, what you need to identify is what's missing from each of the cars. Is it the speed that's missing? Is it the distance that's missing? Or is it the time that's missing? And that's what you've got to work out for each of the cars. Okay? For each of the cars. So for example, the Ford Mustang. You've got the distance, you've got the speed. You need to work out the time. Okay? And then you can compare all three cars and see which is the quickest, which goes the furthest, and which travels for the longest